सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। In the last few mantras of the last chapter of Kathopanishad, we are on mantra 11, page number 253. So please repeat after me. Tam yogamiti manyante स्थिरमिन्द्रियधारणाम् अप्रमत्तस्तदा भवति योगो हि प्रभवाप्ययौ। After summing up the entire sadhana process, this is a kind of a warning given to every sincere seeker out there. He says, Tam yogam iti manyante. This can be firmly claimed as yoga when sthiram indriya dharanam, when all organs of perception, action and after, starting from the organs of perception, action, are accessible, are under control, are in balance. So that is our first step to gain. Are our organs of perception, action in control? Are they accessible? Are they constantly in balance? Some might argue, is it even a possibility? Then I give them a classic answer, because I keep hearing the same set of answers, so I give them the classic answer. It depends. It depends on who is trying to understand this mantra. If it were not a possibility, Yamaraja, having given so far that logical sequence, would not have mentioned this even, if it were not a possibility. And with various seekers that have in the past continued to do this sadhana, have also claimed thus. Having absolute control, balance and accessibility over the organs of perception, action. If we are into a certain work, focusing and channelizing all energies towards it, The organs of perception, organs of action, the mind, intellect, the energy, the inspiration, the clarity, the direction, everything into that one particular direction. That day when we achieve complete comprehensive approach in every moment, after having executed that particular moment, there is immense satisfaction inside. We do not need to crave for anybody outside to come and pat our back, good job. Or we do not need to cry foul, saying, I'd keep doing so many things, nobody ever appreciates. You don't need to. Why? The indriyas are the first and foremost things that have to be under our control. If you have to travel from here to your house or from your house to here, should you not have a proper control, balance and accessibility on everything that is called a car? It happened long time ago. The first time I sat in a car back in India. I had borrowed somebody's car, and right in front of them, I knew the mechanics of it. See, that is the problem. I had never driven it personally. I understood the mechanics of it very thoroughly. With little patience, she put it into the first gear, first turned the ignition on, put it in the first gear, slowly released the clutch and increased, and then moved the vehicle, and then I got into the second gear, got into the third gear, and went into the streets. Couple of times in the local streets, going a little confidence. My license tha na, kuch tha. I had a two-wheeler license, but not a four-wheeler license. So got out, and from the the streets around the ashram, went to the main street, and went around for another 15-20 minutes in these main streets, then got onto the national highway. In the first half an hour, got onto the national highway. And this national highway in Vijayawada crosses Krishna river. Just as about I was trying to get to that bridge, it started raining. I tell you, it was a downpour. Could not see even 5 to 10 feet away from me. Okay. And that was not my problem. My problem was that I did not know how to turn the lights on. I did not know how to use the wipers. And it is a heavy national highway, it is a heavy road, and you cannot stop your car anywhere. So I crossed the bridge and immediately took a left turn and stopped there, and then figured out various things for the first time in life. See, when you do not have the complete accessibility of the entire equipment, do you think it would have been a safe thing for me to drive? One has to understand the entire thing and have the entire equipment under control, under balance, know when to access, how to access. That is when it is a safe journey. One side the ears are pulling into a direction, the eyes are going into a different direction, and in between we are pulling out the cell phone to check messages, status updates. On Sundays I see all these things. There was one person very early in 2002, 2003. That parent had brought a newspaper and he was reading the newspaper while listening to the lecture. I said, Bhaiya, I don't have you reading the newspaper, I don't have a problem. but don't give scope to the rest of them, that is also an opportunity. Please either go out and read or put it aside and listen. And then he was casually in between, he would put the paper down and said, but I have a question. I have not gone through the newspaper. Sitting in the puja or dhyana, or why puja or dhyana, even working at something consistently, our minds are not focused. Our indriyas are not balanced. Constantly in this, agitated, constantly moving, constantly wobbling. First gain control over that. Sthiram indriya dharanam. A couple of important tips for a sadhaka to learn, master as we go step by step in our sadhana. First, it is called asana dharana. When we sit for our puja, japa, dhyana, contemplation, whatever we are process of, for that 1 hour, like now satsang that you are sitting in, for that 1 hour, park your body in such a fashion that for next 1.5 hours, as long as the event lasts, you don't need to move this body again and again. Asana sthirata, asana dharana. If the asana itself is like fluctuating every 2-3 minutes, dancing, do you think the mind is constant there? You may have observed, when your mind is completely absorbed into something, the position that you are sitting, the inconvenience of the position that you are sitting in does not matter, you have already transcended it. Or the other way around, the mind has so tuned out from it that the inconvenience of the posture doesn't bother, it goes into sleep. So, asana sthirata. And for that, even some grosser things have to be learnt. While you are seating yourself in that particular, for that particular event, sit in such a place so that you are not a disturbance or hindrance to anybody, and the entire world doesn't become a hindrance or a disturbance for your sadhana. Like on Sundays we have the entire hall filled, people will keep sitting at that doorsteps. And they will keep sitting at these stairways on either side. And every time we have to keep moving them. Please move forward, please come forward. If you find space in front of you, dikhta nahi hai kya? Move, go sit there so that you are not moved henceforth from that place. Find such a spot. See, even in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan gives the entire list of do's and don'ts, he says, Sthiram asana meaning having found the sthira asana that you don't need to move. Or else, the children, or even we, when we start doing things, we will find such a place wherein everybody is walking right in front of us. And then we frown at them. Why are you disturbing me? Go sit at a place where you are not disturbed by them. Why do you have to pick that spot only? Or else it becomes, in Hindi it is called nautanki. See, whenever you go to the temple area, there will be one such wearing, this kind of cloth. They will be sitting with a mat spread. They will have 4 stones on 4 corners of that mat, so that the mat doesn't fly away. And then one dilapidated, nobody wants to touch that, such kind of a 10 rupee note. torn, shattered into pieces is put. So that that does not fly away, another stone put, and then sitting for there meditating. That is not the place for meditation, or your dhyana or our dhyana should not be art of display. I mean, that person is using it for raising some funds, it was a fundraiser for him. But our sadhana should not become a nautanki or a display act alone. So, sthiram asanam. Empty the indriyas from its craving for various things that it can have, it can wait. So, the first time I met Gurudev, not first time, in the first week that I met Gurudev, he was giving a talk to these college students. Though I was not in a college then, but still being a volunteer that I had signed up, I got the opportunity to get in. And he was talking about renaissance of the culture, renaissance of the entire nation. He was talking about such things. He said young people should come forward, step in and lead them, lead the rest of them. So, after his 50-60 minutes talk, so he was sent 2-3 questions written down, and it was sent to him. They said, one of the questions that he read was, so you mean to say that all of us who are youngsters should follow the same path like you, leave home, ghar grihasti, and then become a sannyasi, not think about marriage and such things? That is what, is that what you are suggesting? To postpone our desires, postpone our things, and give up all those things, not even postpone? So, Gurudev smiled and he said, okay, for the culture, for the nature, for our traditions, for our entire nation, I am not asking you to give them up, just postpone it for next life. For this life, give it up. Next life, if it is there, let us see about it. At that moment when we are sitting for any serious sadhana, empty the indriyas of its craving, remove them. Sit down with completely calmed, unirritated indriyas. That is why the early morning is the best time. Why? Because we are not a disturbance to anybody and nothing else from the outside world can trigger the indriyas, first point. Second point, the freshness of our morning, the entire indriyas are so rejuvenated, charged up, that the itch to go out into the world is not yet erupted in them. At that time, sitting and doing it is the best. But so, is it okay to do it in the evening? Kabhi to bhi karo baba. Sometimes do it. But logically speaking, it is not that effective. Why? By the time you come home, deal with your children, family, food, clean up, every bone in you is demanding rest. And at that time you say, Om Namo Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Where will be the interest? Swamiji, I am trying to do my sadhana, but it is not going anywhere. Where will it go? Because at that time it is not even ready for it. Sthiram Indriya Dharanam. See, when we are given the Diksha, we are given a title called Swami. The Sannyasa Diksha, we are given a title called Swami. What does the Swami mean? Somebody who should have a control, balance and accessibility on all these components, starting from 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action, the mind and the intellect. Boss of the system. We have the system, but we don't know who is the boss yet. We want to focus here, it runs there. We want to focus there, it runs somewhere else. It's like a child running. That is the first step in yoga. Apramattaha tada bhavati, become alert, apramatta, without any wobbling. Why alert? See, when you are driving on highway, can you take off your attention? I mean, in this country anything can happen. 6-7 years ago in the newspaper, it was also in the news channel, there was this fellow who sued the RV company, whoever was the RV company. He bought a new RV, recreational vehicle, the RV he purchased, and he went on a first long drive. So he hit the highway, put it on a cruise mode, and then he went to the backside of the RV to get himself fresh cup of coffee. What happens? The entire thing went, luckily it hit no one else. It went and hit into the mid island between the two sides and upside down. And he sued the company, stating that in their manual it was not written clearly that after you put it on cruise mode, you cannot leave the wheel. And after taking care of his medical expenses, he was awarded some money. इतनी बेवकूफ़ी क्यों करते हैं? Simple common sense, right? It is not an artificial intelligence that is sitting there that can drive on its own. The driver has to be alert. That is why in our highways back in India, in spite of that there are accidents that happen, but the slogans are pretty good. I love to read those slogans. So that slogan says, Nazar hati, durghatna ghati. Your attention goes off even for a moment. That is the cause for accidents in life. Simple common sense truth. And as we start focusing on this balance of this mind, of these indriyas and the mind and the intellect, and take it towards something subtler, one has to be alert 24/7. In fact, alertness should become our immediate reflexes. Alertness should become our immediate nature. And it is not with the same alertness that we have today, which is born from the platform of tensions. Why are we alert? Because we are tense, we are afraid. Hence, therefore, alert. No, that is not the right platform for alertness. Apramattaha. So alert that I would not leave even a moment's choice to make a mistake. So consciously living every moment of our life. Apramattaha. This is a very high evolved state. Where are we? We are sometimes at the platform wherein the same mistakes that we have been doing in the past, we keep repeating them in the most glamorous way. And what is the new thing in our life? The same mistake being repeated in a new fashion. That is why in utter compassion, Shankaracharya says, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Moodha Mate. What does Moodha Mate mean? It is not those who commit mistakes who are called fools, but those of us who have maintained such expertise, dakshata, in repeating the mistakes again and again, the same things again and again, expecting newer results. I am frustrated. I don't know when this will change. I have been trying. The whole modus operandi is wrong. From that state, we have to grow to this state wherein every moment is consciously lived. Not a single moment passes by wherein I can say, oops, mistake happened. I was not alert. It seems impossible in the beginning. Swamiji, it seems almost overburdening. How can you remain always alert? Where is joy of life then? Who says that being alert is directly cancelling the joy of your life? Even without attempting at it. In fact, it enhances your moment of joy. A simple example. I have given these examples earlier also. The first time that you are on a bicycle. In India, we didn't have those supporter wheels. It came way back, way back then there was nothing. So our older brother or a cousin or father, so they would hold the back seat and try to give that balance, and we pedal and they are running behind. After a day or two's effort, as you are talking to the support system behind you, back end support, the one who is holding your back seat, and you are chatting away, and that person observes, "Arey, it is not that strenuous on my hand, this fellow seems to have gained balance." And you are chatting, and the responses are not coming. You are spooked. You turn behind to see that that fellow who is supposed to hold your cycle is way back there. Until then, until the time where you realize that nobody is holding it, you have been riding it fine. But at that moment, what happens? My recent this year experience, because I have recently learned to float on water surface. Rajiv had a ball. He would throw Vedanta at me. He says, Swamiji, you are holding on to the non-required things. First believe that you can float. Give away your fears. This is the right platform for applying Vedanta. But he was a good teacher. Along with his side jabs, he also taught. The one key factor that had to be learnt was, usually when we breathe outside water, is we breathe through our nose and breathe out through our nose. That is how it has been designed. If you observe under a shower, when the water is hitting directly on your face, you stop breathing. Have you ever observed? You cannot breathe, you stop breathing. It is the ingrained system that underwater, भैया गलती से भी मत करना. So what do you have to do now? Change it a little bit, wherein you breathe through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Once I got hang of that particular reverse of system, a different system, and then to stay float was easy. But I can only stay float as long as one breath lasts. After that, I did not get an opportunity to further practice it, but I can float, that much I know. For somebody who has never stepped into the water and experienced that floating experience, it is humanly impossible. But for somebody who has learned to swim, it is humanly impossible to drown. You have to really put a lot of effort to drown. To stay afloat is easy. But that alertness that has to be developed while you are doing it, even for a moment, bhul gaya. In a swimming pool or in a lake or in the ocean, you are swimming and then you forgot. Instead of breathing out, you breathe in. Done. Oh, but I did that mistake only once. I did not intend any harm. How can I be penalized? Would you not be penalized in that moment if you lose that alertness? So never take even a single moment in life lightly. Don't take it seriously. Take it sincerely, alertly. Apramattaha tada bhavati. Why is he talking about it with such emphasis? He says, on the path of yoga, prabhavapyayau. There is a high possibility for the seeker on this path. If that seeker maintains high alertness, there is growth guaranteed. And having gone to a real subtle, substantial height, at that time when you miss your alertness, the fall will be great and the pain of the fall will also be equally great. A refresher joke, because I have already told this joke. What is the difference between somebody who falls from the first floor and the 10th floor? Do you know the difference? I have told it many times, but with the stare that you are giving, I can go for it again. The one who falls from the first floor, thap, ah. The one who falls from the 10th floor, ah, thap, no more sound. The higher you go, the more alert you have to grow. Oh, I have reached to a certain height, now I can take it easy. No. Another pointer. As we grow step by step in our own sadhana and we reach to certain level inside, those factors which have been lightly bothering us, we can work our way and grow out of them. Then you are standing right in front of those things which are like a mammoth size, and you have to handle them yourself. There is no other way out other than going through it. There is no other escape route. You have to handle it. And at that time, if we don't handle it properly and alert with an alert mind, alert system, it can weigh us down to back to that level wherein we would lose the spirit, lose the inspiration to get back and walk that path again. That's why walking on this path is like walking on razor's edge. Kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya. Walking on the razor's edge. Why is that? Because once you slip, it's difficult to get back. So watch every step, consciously move forward. Never take anything lightly. Take everything sincerely, never too seriously. Understand the difference between sincerity and seriousness. Seriousness comes with pressure. Sincerity comes with pleasure. You choose whether it has to be a pressure or a pleasure. Do it sincerely though. Prabhavapyayau. There are many people who come onto this path. Their initial inspiration is amazing. But down the lane, they lose sight, they lose focus, they lose their track. It's very easy to lose track. You know the famous story of Kaupina Samrakshanartham? There was this sadhu, and this boy came in with lot of interest. And the sadhu saw that spark in him and he said, "Beta, I'll teach you the yoga sadhana." Taught him the yoga sadhana. And he grew up with him for 6-7 years. And then he said, "You know, it has been my desire to go visit Kashi. If everything is fine, I'll come back. So you are the next in charge, take care of the ashram." So the ashram, when the old Babaji was there, it was already in a very run-down condition. But he never complained, he lived wherever, whatever was there, he lived, and it was very fine for him. But this young sadhu now found that there were too many rats. And the rats were, destroying his property. What was the property that he was having? A lion cloth, langot. So every day he would go for bhiksha, he would say, "Can you give me a piece of cloth extra for my langot?" So this household saw that he was asking almost every other day. So they said, "I have a solution for you. Instead of asking for these many clothes, why don't you take our kitten gift to the ashram? The cat will have enough to chase around and it will keep your place safe." So from the next day onwards, he had a second problem. So bhavati bhikshan dehi marjalartham dugdham api. For the cat that I own, now I need some milk also. Along with the food that you are bringing in, give me some milk. So this went around for a while. Then somebody who owned the cattle, he said, "Why do you go around asking for milk? Take my cow." So from the next day, the problem now changed. Along with his food, now there was food for the cat, but the food for the cow. That is why when people tell, "Swamiji, I am thinking of donating this thing to ashram," I said, "Wait, don't donate, because you will donate later to maintain it. It's a big headache. Don't give wet elephants. So he went around asking now for himself food and a bundle of grass for the cow. So there was another household who said, my property is the adjacent property to your ashram. So those 2 acres I am giving it to the ashram. Grow grass there and let the cow eat that grass and you will have your solution solved. So then the property was given, he started growing the grass or something, and it said, anyway there is property, so the cow does not require 2 acres of grass. So half acre he was growing it for the grass, the other half acre for paddy, then there was vegetable garden. He had 2 people employed, and there was a lady employed to take care of the cow and feeding the cow and milking the cow. Before everybody realized, he got married to that lady also. By another few more years, he had Chinnu, Minnu, Tinku, Binku. Production engineering, 4-5 बच्चे हो गए थे. Guru came back. By the time Guru came back, it was a very beautiful bungalow there with lots of servants and lot of hustle bustle. There was paddy field, there was vegetable field. Now one cow had given birth to different calves and the oxes and the cows, and it was a big goshala there. It was a total ecological system, thriving ecological system that was a total different nature. So he stood outside that property and he shouted, my Sishya, I left him here. Is he still there? And this fellow comes out running and he does Sashtanga Namaskar, Gurudev, I missed you. I don't know how you managed it, but after you gave this to me to manage, this is what I became. Right? All because of one cowpea. It's so easy to lose focus. Anybody or anything or any circumstances can rob us of that moment. It can be anybody. Anything can become a triggering factor to lose focus. Stay focused. Alertness is the only way. Apramattaha tada bhavati yogo hi prabhavapyayo. After this warning on the process of self-evolution is given, our Yamadharmaraja raises few objections. He says, Naiva vacha na manasa praptum shakyo na chakshusha asti tibhuvatonyatra katham tadupalabhyate. He says, you may be wondering that naiva vacha na chakshusha, with these 2 representatives from organs of perception and organs of action. Chakshusha, the organ of perception, the representative. Vacha, the speech, the representative of organs of action. This truth, praptum na shakyah, neither can be attained through the organs of perception nor can be attained through the organs of action. Na manasa api praptum shakyah, neither by the mind we can find this truth, but they keep insisting it exists. Go find it. These are the only known means that I have. How else can I find? If that be your objection, he says in the 13th mantra, Astityevopaladhavyah Tattvabhavena chobhayoh Astityevopalabdhasya Tattvabhavah prasidati. Here the words used are similar to the question that Nachiketa had asked. Astityeke, Nayam Astityeke. This is way back in first chapter. So he asked these questions. So are we talking about that? He says no. He says, Asti iti eval upalabdhavyah. See, when we start into this path, the clarity that one has to reach before we sit on the seat of meditation, after we have gained complete control and accessibility on the organs of perception, organs of action, the mind and the intellect, what is the clarity that we require? Asti iti eva upalabdhavyah. Asti iti. Asti iti. That truth is. That self is attainable. That self-realization is a possibility. See, many of them listen to the, especially on Sundays, they hear the lecture. And one thing that keeps bothering everyone, because that is the often spoken study group question, is everything is fine, but how practical is this? Can we apply it in today's world of time and period? Do you attend study groups? Is it one of the formats of question that you come across? To hear it is all fine, but then, I don't think it is practical. Without finding the clarity of its practicality, attempting to go any further in the path of spirituality is a futility. We will reach nowhere. Get that clarity first. That which this Upanishads are speaking about is not something which is impossible, may be difficult, but definitely possible. Asti iti eva upalabdhavyah. Tattva bhavena cha ubhayoho. Tattva bhavena, the truth can be attained. That self-realization is a possibility. Asti iti eva upalabdhavasya tattva bhavasya prasidati. As here we are not talking about faith, we are talking about clarity. Once having gained the clarity that this is a possibility and that is the purpose of my life, that spiritual unfoldment is the purpose of my life, such seekers, prasidati, alone shall attain this. Absolutely no confusion. The outside field of work responsibility will still continue. Due diligence has to be given in performing those activities. That will never lead us to self-realization. Here self-realization meaning, in simple terms, being happy, being blissful. That being blissful, that being in that state of blissfulness is a possibility, and it can be achieved. It has to be understood logically, unfailing logic. Come what may, unshakable should be the conviction. Otherwise, little things that happen, I think I can put this on hold. Because didn't Bhagavad Gita say that you have to put your head where the hands are? And we are very good at one thing. We can be a good devil's advocate. We use the right logic at the wrong place, or the wrong logic at the right place, very efficiently. So gain that conviction, gain that, and that is why there is so much of redundancy in the scriptures. They could have given one sutra and be done with. But the redundancy is in a part and part, it's a part and parcel of this entire process of teaching, so that the abhyasa of again and again hearing it, abhyasa of again listening it from different angles, viewpoints. When the different angles of light is shined upon it, somewhere something clicks. And that is where we will stand in utter revelation. Wow! It was staring right in front of me, right into my own eyes. How did I miss this simple fact? I tell you, 3-4 times such revelations happen. All the air about me being smart, me being intelligent, me being better than the best, that impression of the ego, that solidified formation of one's own identity gets a beating, thorough beating. Then we stop taking that figure, that image of ourselves seriously. Because it is such simple things that are staring at us, but we are not able to view it in the right angle. And can be attempted, can be understood only when we completely, truly understand that this path is a possibility, this path is reality, this path is the purpose of my life. Such ones will definitely gain it. Tattva bhavaha prasidati, will attain that tattva bhava. Continuing further, he says, Yada sarve pramuchyante kama yesya hridishritaah atha martyo mrito bhavati atra brahma samashnute. In short, this is what I want to say, says Yama. That in the last few mantras he said the organs of perception action have to be well tuned, balanced, disciplined. And how should the mind be? He says, Yada sarve kamaha pramuchyante, all desires are completely wiped off from the heart, from the mind. again don't question, is it even possible? Not at this stage, but it is a possibility. When that happens, he says, atha martyaha amrito bhavati. When that stage is acquired wherein all desires are annihilated. How are all desires annihilated? Desires are the result of someone. Who is that someone? Jivatva, or the ego. When that ego itself is burnt, roasted away. See, when the seed is roasted, roasted seeds, when they are planted back into the soil, will they germinate? They can never germinate. Similarly, in the intensity of sadhana, when the seed of ego is roasted, there is no more scope for that jiva to erupt in different forms of desires. When the cause is removed, naturally the results, the effects of it will be eliminated as a natural byproduct. Yada sarve pramuchyante kama yesya hridishritaha atha martyaha amritaha bhavati atra brahma samashnute. Such seeker attains Brahma or Brahman here and now, in this very life. So, all these are different steps of sequences which is summing up as his thoughts. And this explained first, I mean the earlier shloka, the 14th shloka was explained in the terms of jnana. In the terms of yoga, how did they describe it? He sums that thought here. He says, Yada sarve prabhidyante hridayasyeha granthayah atha martyomrito bhavati ye tavadanushasanam. Have you ever worked with crochet needle or the sweater needles? Why crochet or sweater needles and the bundle? A simple thing is the Yajnopavita comes in bundle. If we do not know how to unwrap it, it will get into such a messy confusion, and you keep pulling one string after the other, one string after the other, and it never unties itself. Rather, the more we keep trying, it keeps getting into knots. Can you imagine that situation? That is why one thing that I do when I sit for performing puja, especially on a larger gathering, I check the entire plate as to if everything are there. So I am cross checking the entire list. And one thing that I do is take the Upavita and slowly unwrap it, and then put it in such a pattern that I just have to take the granthi, I mean the knot there, Brahma Grantha, and then do this, and the entire thing comes out in a very effortless manner. Or else imagine, atha upavitam samarpayami, and the mantra is 2 lines or 2.5 lines, and the mantra is chanted, and still like Similarly, the woolen garments, when you start doing the, what do you call that, knitting, and the bundle, the way the wool comes in bulk, you have to first roll it into a ball, so that when you are doing it, it does not get messed up. If you do not pay attention to that, you will get only frustrated. I have given you Yajñopavita example, I have given you woolen example. Why go that far? If you can throw your attention right under the stage there. You see wires? You should see on Sunday. The kids need mic, the coordinator needs mic, the president needs mic, and luckily mine is unconnected to that, so I am fine. So, one person is pulling the wire there, the other one is pulling this direction, and they are all tied up there. And imagine the kid is coming there for the first time and wants to do a good job, and the entire paparazzi is waiting, flashes focusing on them and trying to take the best shot, trying to tell from their seats, put the paper down, it is covering your face, and while you are putting the paper down, focus on it and keep looking, give us a glance and keep a smile. I see everything from here. It's fun watching. And then the kid gets the mic, and somebody else also needs a mic, and they pull, and this is totally gone, confused. And then at that time you run there trying to untangle them. It will only add to confusion. So, if you have understood these examples, similarly inside there are different threads of conditionings, different threads of patterns that we are carrying. And because we are not very consciously working at them, they are not laid down in a very systematic pattern. Instead, how are they? They have been stuffed, when the children come to the camp, Labor Day camp, and they open the bags, all shirts, all pants, all undergarments, all the other, everything neatly packed. The last day, Swamiji, why do you have to see all that? What to do? We have to help them pack. Sometimes they forget. So you open there, it is a disaster. A mini volcano there, a tornado that has just gone by, everything is everywhere. Similarly inside, all these conditionings are so wrapped up, meshed one another, that there is no distinction. So in the yoga bhasha, yoga language, Sarve prabhidyante hridayasya granthayaha. All these knotted ones, conditionings, are shattered. We have plenty of them. When the entire granthaya knots, probably that is why we are naughty, because we are knotted from inside. The spelling difference. We are wound, we are bound. When all these things are completely burnt away, these conditionings are shattered. Atha martyaha amritaha bhavati. It is guaranteed that so far that who was living like a martya, a limited individual, suddenly becomes unconditioned, unlimited Paramatma himself. And as a conclusion to that thought It is said in the next mantra. What happens? How do that Hridaya Granthis break up? Shatam chaika cha hridayasya nadayah. Shatam chaika cha hridayasya nadyah. Tasam murdhanam abhinisrutaika. तासां मूर्धानम अभिनिसृतैका तयोर ऊर्ध्वमायन अमृतत्वमेति विश्वज्ञा उत्क्रमणे भवन्ति Here the Hridaya that is being talked about is the spiritual heart. They are not talking about the blood pumping heart. It is the spiritual heart which is, I have told, right at the middle of the chest, right where there is a depression. Whenever you feel the heaviness while you are in depression, right there. So that Hridaya has shatam cha eka nadyah, 101 nadis, nerves. In fact, in one of the other Upanishads, it is said that the total number of nerves that we have in the human system are 72,101 nadis. Of these 72,100 nadis, 70,101 nadis, 72,100 are physical nadis. You can go to the anatomy class and they will list out all 72,000 for you, 72,100 for you. There is one which cannot be listed by them. That one nadi is called Sushumna nadi, which connects the Mooladhara directly to the Sahasrara. There are various nerve points, the energy points in between. They are all right on the vertebral column. And where is this Sushumna nadi? Right in the middle of that vertebral column. And this Hridaya, if you can see it as, visualize it as a three-dimensional, it is right at this spiritual heart, and that Sushumna nadi is going right through the middle of that spiritual heart. Tasam Murdhanam Abhinisrutaika. That one Sushumna nadi which goes straight directly towards the Sahasrara. When the seeker who is focusing all his Shakti, Prana Shakti onto that one channel, raises that energy from the Mooladhara, and my 2 cents, serious 2 cents, there are enough books outside which can teach, or which you can read, not teach, but which you can read about this Kundalini Shakti. Just because you know how to read Hindi, English, Sanskrit, don't start attempting on this path. If you want to play around, there are other paths. Play with Jnana Marga. Play with Bhakti Marga. We keep playing anyway with Karma Marga. But do not play fool with the Ashtanga Yoga Marga or Hatha Yoga Marga, especially the Sushumna nadi. What happens? I will tell you what will happen also if an untrained uninitiated takes to this path. In this path especially, you need a live guru standing with you every step of your life to teach how to do each process. Just because they are printed in books, don't attempt them. What will happen? The initial Mooladhara awakening can happen. That is not a big deal. But to maintain the steadiness of that awakening in through that Sushumna Nadi is the difficult task. It is almost like putting a thread through the needle's eye. You have it physically and it still feels impossible. It is a very subtle thing, and this energy once awakened, it can shoot into 72,100 possibilities. See, when there is huge amount of waters worthy enough of flowing through the great river, suddenly gets channelized to go through a canal. What will happen to that canal? It will just burst open. That is what happens to the other nadis. They are not made to handle that energy. Am I making very clear? Yes is the signal, no is the signal, some signal please. Okay. This is one path that I ask everyone to be careful about before you attempt into it. Only somebody who has been qualified, learned in this path, who has practiced it all through their life can alone initiate into that path. Every Tom, Dick and Harry cannot initiate this path. So, as that energy passes through the Hridaya, all these knots that we are carrying, they are not unwound, but they are burnt. What will happen to the knots? That also is burnt. In Hindi we say, na rahegi baas, na bajegi basuri. Both the cause and effect are burnt away. So, we may ask, these masters, they also have likes and dislikes. I have been with Gurudev, he used to like mooli sambar. Is that not desire? See, the burnt knots still retain certain shape. You have seen when you burn something, it still retains certain shape. How long is that shape retained? As long as that prarabdha that they have to go through. But they are not impacted by that particular like or dislike. So, do not get carried away by a Mahatma's likes and dislikes. It can be very illusory. Utkramane bhavanti. Once that Hridaya Granthis are burnt and this shoots directly to Sahasrara, that in the yoga sadhana is claimed as Jivan Mukti. He is explained in 2-3 different languages. He is trying to tie all of them down together. The last 2 mantras, repeat after me. Angushtamatra Purushottaratma Sada Jananam Hridaye Sannivishtaha Tam Swacharirat Pravrheta मुञ्जादिवेशिकां धैर्येण तं विद्यात् शुक्रममृतम् तं विद्यात् शुक्रममृतमिति। Whenever it starts with atha, it means that is the beginning. Whenever we find this word called iti, it means sampanna jhala. It is come to an end. So, what is the end that he is saying? Angushta matraha purushontaraatma sada jananam hridaye sannivishtaha. This Paramatma that we are talking about, where is it? It is not somewhere out there, it is right here. And we have seen in the 2 chapters earlier that it is Angushta Matra Purushaha, Yesha Adhumakaha. So, it is like a glowing, conscious glowing mass. And do not try to visualize that shape. It is a indicator given, that is all. It is a pointer given, do not hold on to that. And one should assimilate, tune to that. How? By removing all the obstacles. How are the obstacles removed? Munjat ishikat iva. See, munja grass. See, when Hanuman Chalisa says that Hanumanji is wearing the munja grass. What is the munja grass? It is a sacred grass which is called darbha. Okay. Darbha in American language is called elephant grass. Have you seen elephant grass? It grows like a bush. It is used in decorative places, these gated communities, apartment complexes. Outside you have this grass like structure which comes with a stalk, and then there is a white flowery thing. Next time you see it, you will recognize it now. That is elephant grass. Etat vaitat, you will say. This is that. And then you have munja grass realization. That munja grass is also used by the Pandits. Whenever we do the Havan and other things, they have a pavitra, a kind of a ring, kind of a thing that they ask you to put on your ring finger. So, that particular grass is a specialized skill to draw it out from the entire structure. The entire structure of that grass plant itself is very delicate. So, what they do is like they cut from the stalk and then peel layer after layer, and that has to be done not with a brutal force, because that grass which is of importance and that is which is very sacred is right in the middle, and you cannot use blunt force, and by the time you reach there it will be gone, it will be ruined. So, one by one layer has to be removed, and that munja grass has to be taken. Similarly, that skillfully, that we should reach to that Angushta Matra Purushaha. And then we realize that that is the highest state of purity, and that alone can be claimed as the immortal state of being. Now, so far was the dialogue between just check in Nachiketa and Yama. So, the Rishi who must have captured this entire thought, he concludes it with the 18th mantra. He says, मृत्युप्रोक्तां नचिकेतोऽथ लब्ध्वा विद्यामेतां योगविधिं च कृत्स्नम् ब्रह्म प्राप्तो विरजो भूद्विमृत्युः अन्योप्येवं यो विदध्यात्ममेव यह वित् adhyatmam eva. Okay. He says, this is the conclusion as to Nachiketa went and Nachiketa was instructed. What happened next? So he says, having thus been educated by Mrityu, Lord of Death, Nachiketotha labdha, Nachiketa attained the Vidya, the Yoga Vidhi and practiced it. Having thus practiced it, he attained Brahma Praptaha. He attained that highest stage. Virajaha Abhut Vimrutyuhu. He transcended all impurities, Virajaha. He transcended verily the limitation of death, Vimrutyuhu. And that is the crux of all spiritual unfoldment. It is not to just be good and do good, but to reach to that highest state of spiritual unfoldment, which Nachiketa also got. Now, that is a pointer from the history that Nachiketa gained it. Meaning what? Keep Nachiketa as your ideal, keep Nachiketa as the goal, and as he reached to that state, make sure that we the seekers reach to that state now in this life. Do not miss the opportunity. Iti Kathopanishad. Thus comes the entire chapter or entire segment of Kathaka mantra, recognized as Kathopanishad, to an end. So, it was a beautiful journey through this text, one of the most pragmatic tips of how we can apply it in our day-to-day life. The only prayer to that Almighty and to Gurudev, the entire Guru Parampara, is that, O Lord, give me that conviction, that clarity and strength to follow this path now and to realize it here. May He give us that direction. Dhiyo yonah prachodayat. May He illumine our dhi every step of our life. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So, the next text that I will be focusing here would be either Mundakopanishad or Ganapati Atharva Shirshopanishad, either or. I have not decided yet, but that will be in March. So, that we will see it then. Hari Om.